Hey, it's Katie from the Health, Wellness, and Chocolate podcast, and thank you so much for coming today and listening to the show. What I wanted to talk to you about today was giving you some tools to help you notice some of the habit thoughts that are happening inside your head. And here's why this is important. Most of the time, like especially if you are a yo-yo dieter, right? You know all the right food to eat, you know all of the rules to follow when it comes to healthy eating, but somehow, some way, you kind of keep messing up, or, you start out really strong, something happens, life gets in the way, and the diet goes by the wayside. Well, what I wanted to talk to you about today was giving you some tools to help you identify some of the underlying sabotaging thoughts that you're having to help you get over the hump or not sabotage yourself when you're trying to lose weight. Now, I think one of the things I hate, and actually I'm going to do a whole podcast on this, is this idea of when skinny people say, losing weight is really simple. All you have to do is push the plate away before you finish eating and you'll lose weight. And yeah, that's true. But if that really was true, there wouldn't be a huge obesity problem in the United States. So clearly there's more to it. And I kind of feel like weight loss in a lot of ways, that is a totally oversimplification of it from a person probably who has not struggled with losing weight before, or has maybe the emotional attachment to weight or to overeating that people who struggle with their weight do. And if you don't really know what the thoughts are that are going on in your brain, it's really, really hard to lose weight because you're kind of setting yourself up for failure without actually realizing that your brain is doing it. We talk about a lot is this idea of your brain wants to keep you healthy and happy and safe and fed and wants to keep you alive, right? And so it'll do anything it can to achieve that goal, even if it means telling you it's a fantastic idea to eat off of whatever plan that you've created for yourself, right? And if you're new here, head back to the very first podcast and do the first 5. I go through and set you up for it's a 5-day weight loss challenge, but I kind of give you my philosophy. I'm not a fan of diets at all. And I think by the time you find me, you probably know all the eating rules, you know all that. And really, extra weight on a body is just an indication of life out of balance. So what we do at Health, Wellness, and Chocolate is help you identify and give you the tools you need to figure out what's out of balance and put those things in place so that food is no longer your default or your go-to when it comes to living an awesome life. You can create a life you love where food has its rightful place, but it's not the best part of your day, right? A lot of times I hear clients say I don't want to stop going out to eat because that's the only thing I do and that's the only joy I get out of life or whatever. So our job is to kind of help you identify some other cool things about life. So food isn't really that much important. But one of the things that happens is our brain will try to sabotage us. And we have kind of fallen into these patterns or these thought patterns that don't serve us and actually sabotage us. You have... let's imagine your emotional energy is kind of like a gas tank, right? And you have a certain amount every day. And as you go through your day, it gets lower and lower. So, for example, when you wake up in the morning, you probably start the day out really strong, right? You probably eat a healthy breakfast. Chips and queso are probably not really hard to resist in the morning first thing, or that ice cream sundae that screams to you at night is not hard to resist at 6 a.m. It's just not. For whatever reason, we don't struggle too much in the morning, right? Because our emotional energy tanks are pretty full. But then as the day goes on and we have to make decisions and we have to deal with people and we have to take care of people and we have to be adults and do things, it gets hard and our emotional tank gets lower and lower. And what happens is too, we have thoughts as we go through our day, and most of the time, especially if we are yo-yo dieters or if we struggle, most of the time they're really not nice thoughts. So what I wanted to do is give you a couple tools to help you start to identify or kind of bring to the surface some of these habit thoughts that you have that you can begin to identify. And then once you identify them, I'll just show you real quick how to replace them with thoughts that can serve you and that will ultimately help you with your long-term goals. Now, there's a few different categories of thinking, and so I'm going to go over them pretty quickly so I don't take too much of your time. But then as you go through the week, see which ones resonate with you the most and see which ones you're doing. And I'll share some personal stories as I go through this so that you can see, like maybe it can help you, see where maybe you fall on this spectrum. So the first one would be black and white thinking. Now, if you are a seasoned yo-yo dieter, we think in black and white terms, right? Like we're either on a diet and being totally awesome and obeying all the rules, or we're like, nope, I will go on a diet as soon as the season changes, or like at the new year, like I'll wait till Labor Day or whatever it is, right? Like it's black and white thinking, like I'm either going to eat perfect or I'm going to eat out of control. And the problem is there's a whole lot of choices that you can make in the middle rather than this all or nothing, right? So it's either I'm eating perfectly or I'm eating everything, right? But there's like this middle continuum that if we think in black and white terms, that we forget about. And I call it the gray inside the health and wellness blueprint. And what we say is like, live in the gray, stop living in these black and white terms. Like, yes, it's great to have goals and yes, it's great to hit them, but you've got to stop thinking like, if I'm not doing it perfectly, I can't do it at all. Right. So what you can do is, think of all the ways that you can hit your goals, but have more balance. So for example, last night it was hot. I was talking to my husband, I'm probably PMSing, and I said, I was scrolling Instagram and I saw hot fudge sundae, and I'm like, that looks really good. I even sent him the picture of it on Instagram, like direct message, like that looks really good. He's like, well, do you want one? I'll go get it. It's no big deal. I'm like, nah, I really don't. I really don't want it. Like, I do want it, of course, right? But I actually really don't want it because I'm going to choose not to have it because I know I won't sleep well tonight. I also know my hips will hurt because if I have a lot of sugar, my hips hurt since I don't know why, but since I've had my baby, it just, my hips hurt if I have sugar. And also, I didn't write it down ahead of time. I didn't plan for it. It really is just a reaction to a feeling I'm having. And I know when I go to bed, I'll be mad at myself for doing that. But also, I'm not just going to get it because I want it. Like it just popped up and now I'm going to, I know better. Like before I would have been like, oh yeah, we'll just start the diet tomorrow. It's Sunday night. Like, let's do this, let's make this happen. But now I'm like, you know what though? I do want something chocolatey because I am PMSing. So I'll tell you what, I have some strawberries. I'll melt some chocolate chips. I'll make some chocolate covered strawberries and everybody can have a couple and it'll hit the spot, but it'll also keep in mind my health and wellness goals. So I won't feel deprived, but I'll still get that little taste of something sweet that I really actually am kind of craving. So that would be living in the gray, right? Like I didn't go all in and get the extra large jumbo hot fudge sundae because I felt like I wanted it. But I also didn't say like, oh my goodness, you are a horrible person for even thinking you want that. How dare you? What kind of failure are you? What kind of health and wellness coach and weight loss coach are you if you actually wanted a hot fudge sundae? Like how terrible, right? Like I didn't even go there. It was like, you know what? I do want something sweet. I'll make some chocolate covered strawberries. That's a really great balance. And it was like, okay, had two, life went on. Right? No drama. But this black and white thinking, before I learned this, it would have been like, oh my goodness, yeah, it is on. Let's put the kids to bed early and let's go get extra large hot fudge sundaes. Right? And then we'll just start the diet tomorrow. Right? Like that's, back in the day, that's how that would have went down. So identify times in your life where it is black and white thinking. It's like, well, I'm at the restaurant and I already ordered a drink of wine, so I might as well eat the bread in the bread basket and go ahead and get the fries and dessert and whatever, right? Like it's all or nothing, okay? Instead of saying, okay, well, I'll plan a glass of wine and I'm going to enjoy it and we're going to be out with our friends. Like try to consider all the choices you make as being balanced, but always plan ahead, right? Try to plan ahead of time so you're not just reacting to that that part of your brain that just wants immediate gratification, right? But you can plan ahead those treats. So black and white thinking is the first thought error, all right? I'll call them thought errors. So you fail to consider that there's other choices between all or nothing. And so that's your takeaway, right? There are choices in between all or nothing thinking. So, if you make just one mistake or one decision that doesn't serve your health and wellness goals, don't throw everything else out the window. It's just like, okay, there's other choices I could have made, but I didn't, and I'm going to move on, and that's okay. That's just life. So the next one would be, taking that all or nothing thinking and then really blowing it up out of proportion and making it more than it is. So say we went ahead and went all in on that hot fudge sundae, and it would have been like this overgeneralization where it's like, why'd I do that? I'm such a failure. I have no willpower, right? Like really beating myself up. Oh, I always do this. So overgeneralization is going to use terms as like always, or, I never make the right choices. I always do this. I always mess up, or, I always do the wrong thing, or, you really work yourself up, and what you're doing is setting yourself up for the future to say like, oh, well, what's the point? I always screw this up anyway. I shouldn't even bother. I'm always just going to be fat. Like you just generalize everything. And you actually can talk yourself into failing ahead of time where you don't even try because you think like, well, what's the point? Right. And so you fail ahead of time because you don't even try to fail. You just like, I'm going to fail. I don't care. I'm not going to do this anymore. So be careful with overgeneralization. It is a super slippery slope. The next one is mental filtering. So let's say you get a really great haircut and you love your haircut and you think it's awesome. And, you run into a few people and they're like, that's a great haircut. I love it. But then you run into maybe your mother-in-law or somebody who's super critical of you. And they're like, oh, you got a haircut. And then they move on. They don't compliment it or anything, right? All the other compliments that you got are completely negated by the one comment, right? You have filtered out all the positive and you're only focused on the one negative, okay? That's like it's called mental filtering, right? Like you pick out, this one detail that wasn't positive and you only focus on that. That is so depleting. It's just like, it really is self-defeating, right? Like you really need to think of the full picture. And really, who cares if someone doesn't like your haircut? Not everybody's going to, and that's okay. Do you like it? That's what's important. If you like your haircut, then you rock it. Don't worry about what other people think about it. But try to notice through your week, okay, do you do that mental filtering? Are you really like maybe a ton of things went right, but maybe one thing went wrong and you only focus on that one negative thing, and you really let it discolor your whole day or your whole week. And then you set yourself up for failure, like say at nighttime, like, oh, I can't do anything right. I'm such a failure. I might as well eat. And then that will at least help me feel better. Or, well, I can't do anything right or nobody likes me, but at least I have food, right? Food is my best friend. So be careful when you're mentally filtering. What are you focusing on and what are you ignoring too? And then the next thing would kind of be a little bit more of a launch pad from that one, and that would be to disqualify the positive. So a lot of times when you struggle with your weight, you also probably have, poor self-image. And you probably only talk about yourself negatively. Maybe you feel like you have low self-worth. And really, if you are disqualifying your positives, like you don't accept compliments or you don't think you're worthy, you constantly like put yourself in this mind rut. And if you're making yourself feel bad about yourself, thinking like, oh, well, I'm not worthy, or I can't do this, or I don't do anything right. Like, or if something, maybe you do something well, but you kind of like, well, that was just luck. Or, I was just a fluke that happened, right? Like, so something positive happens to you, but you totally disqualify it and not accept any credit for it. Like you're overly willing to accept and feeling overly responsible to accept stuff that's negative, but you do not accept the things that you maybe have done that were positive, and you don't allow them to be part of who you are. Right. And so that is something too, like, because if you feel like you can never do anything right, or you never make good decisions, and you're always feeling bad about yourself, of course you're going to make bad food choices because you don't feel like you're worthy of making good food choices. Right. Like it's a matter of self-respect. But if you have a poor self-image, regardless of what your body size is, you probably struggle with self-respect and, wearing the right size underwear, regardless of your body size, treating your body with respect, appreciating your body, regardless of what size it is a form of self-care. And it is super important, especially if you want to lose weight. If you can't start at least accepting I have a body and it's moving and it's breathing and it's healthy. You don't have to love it yet, but you really do need to at least start treating it with respect. Because like overeating or binge eating, like those are not forms of self-care or self-respect, right? Like you want to pay attention to, all right, am I treating my body with respect? Am I having negative thoughts about myself? And do I have a poor self-image? Do I even give myself any credit when I do things right? Notice that this week, and notice if you do it, start to try to find things that you do positively, and start giving yourself some credit for that. And that will help you build that self-efficacy. That is so crucial in learning how to lose weight. And we go into a huge deep dive on self-efficacy inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint, which is a shameless plug that you should go and join because it's only $1 and you can check it out. All right. So the next one is jumping to conclusions. This one is really interesting. Like, so you tend to play fortune teller, right? Or anticipate that something is going to turn out badly, even if you have no evidence to suggest that. You might think like, well, I'm not going to know anybody at the party, so I might as well go eat everything and keep my mouth full so I don't have to worry about talking to anybody, since probably no one's going to want to talk to me anyway, right? Like you jump to conclusions, or you think you know what other people are thinking and what other people are doing, and you make it mean something negative about you. That tends to cause a lot of anxiety. And let's see, maximizing or minimizing. And just so you know, I'm getting some of these thought errors. They call it, it's from the book Brain Powered Weight Loss, but they call it cognitive distortions that lead to unwanted eating. I like to call it thought errors, and it will help you throughout your day. Okay, so then the next one would be maximizing and minimizing. And again, this kind of goes over the disqualifying the positive and the disqualifying the positive and the mental filtering. But like really, you tend to ignore the things that you're doing right and really focus on the things you're doing badly, right? So it's like it destroys your confidence because you're feeling like, well, I only exercised 4 times this week instead of 6 like I wanted. But like you're forgetting, like, hey, you did 4 times and that's way better than you were doing before you even tried, right? Like you don't give yourself any credit for doing the positive things, or you minimize it. Like, oh, I only worked out 4 times this week, but I didn't work out 6, right? And like you really emphasize what you didn't do as opposed to paying attention to what you did do and being proud of like even the small baby steps that you've done are super, super super important to do. So some more would be like taking a thought or an emotion and assuming it's true, even if there's no basis in reality for it. Like, oh, I feel anxious or I feel stressed. When you work yourself, like you find evidence, all the evidence that you can for you to feel stressed, right? Like, oh, well, this and that. And like you allow your brain to kind of go off on tangents, looking for evidence of all the reasons why you should feel stressed or why you are stressed. And all of a sudden you feel stressed. And then what do you do when you feel stressed? You eat, right? And so it's like find times during the week, like where you're allowing your thoughts to kind of run away like a freight train. And when it's on its track, it's looking for evidence of why it should feel that way. And it's going to back it up, right? Because what happens in your mind is you'll have a thought or an assumption and you'll find evidence for that particular thought or assumption. Like, oh, look, see, like even if there's other evidence that shows it's contrary, you'll find evidence to prove like whatever thought you had was right. So, pay attention to that. Like pay attention to what you're feeling and how you're looking for evidence to back that up. And then the next thought pattern that you should pay attention to would be thinking in absolutes. Like and again, this kind of goes along with the black and white thinking. But like for example, thinking in absolutes is, I can never have that hot fudge sundae. Never. Right? And then that only leads to feeling deprived. And then once you're feeling deprived, you're kind of back in that diet mentality of like, I can never eat these things. I can never get together with friends for happy hour. I can never, do these fun things that I wanted to do because I'm on a diet. And so you're in a holding pattern until that diet ends. And then of course, once you stop dieting, you're like, well, let's party, right? Because you got that all or nothing thinking. And then of course the weight comes back on. So what you want to do is stop with the absolutes like that I can't, I shouldn't, I mustn't. I have a whole class just on these, but like find ways to replace those words with so for me, instead of saying like, I can't have a hot fudge sundae tonight, like I can't do that, like I have to eat healthy and I have to eat perfect, it was like, you know what, I choose not to have it. Like I just don't want it. So I'm going to choose not to have it because I know I won't feel well. But I'm going to see what else I could choose to have instead. So rather than one, beating myself up for even having the desire, but two, recognizing like, yeah, you know what? I'm a grown adult. I could have whatever I want. And I think I've shared with you before, like one of the ways that I was able to lose weight was like by telling myself like, Katie, you are an adult. If you want another gyro, you can go get one, but you don't have to eat all of this now, even if you're full. Save some for later. Even though it tastes so much better when it's hot, like you can always go get another one. Like you have a car and you have access to gyros. Like it's okay. Like you're an adult. Like you've got this, right? And like, so is finding, taking these thoughts I had, like, oh, I have to eat all this because I never know when I'm ever going to have a gyro again. It's like, is that really true? I don't think it is. Like, you're an adult and you could go get another gyro. It's really simple. You get in the car and you go and you get it. So it's not this scarcity. Like, I don't know whenever I am going to be in the exotic land of Pennsylvania with gyro available to me. It's like, no, you have a car, you can go get a gyro. You don't have to think in this scarcity, all or nothing thinking, or I can't have it, or I shouldn't have it, or, this, it's like, I choose not to eat this whole thing because I know I'm going to feel sick, or I choose not to have that hot fudge sundae because I just know it's going to go against what I want to achieve my health goals. And that doesn't mean I'll never have one again, but I just don't want it right now. So I'm going to choose not to have it. Not that I can't have it because I'm an adult and I could go get ice cream, but I choose not to. And it's such a better and more powerful way to approach life as opposed to like, oh, I can't, I shouldn't, I mustn't. Right? So pay attention to when are you telling yourselves all these rules and then making it mean more and feeling deprived and then like that all or nothing black and white thinking because that is a setup for failure. Okay? If you're living in this sea of extremes and absolutes, it's just a way to set yourself up for failure. And then the next one would be when you say you do go for that hot fudge sundae and then you make it mean you are such a loser. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I have no willpower. I am such a flawed person. I have no ability to have self-control. Like you take all of you mislabel yourself, right? Like you take something that you did and you make it mean so much more than it really was. Where it's like, oh, well, I had that. I probably wish I didn't, but I did. And I'm going to, that wasn't the best choice, but I have to move on. And so I'll do something better next time, or like I'll make a better choice right now. I'm going to go have a drink of water and immediately start making better health choices. Okay. And then the last one would be, I think it's making yourself feel more responsible or feeling over responsible for everybody else's emotions and behaviors. So if you start to feel sadness, guilt, frustration, anger, anxiety, people pleasing, not wanting to hurt other people, feeling like you have to make them happy, that your behavior is responsible for everybody else, or your actions are going to make and break everybody else's day, that would be feeling overly responsible. And I was talking about this in the class I teach right before I hop on and record this podcast. And I was saying, when I was doing my research, one of the things I stumbled across was Dr. Roger Gould had talked about people who struggle with their weight a lot of times are either adult children of alcoholics, meaning you're an adult now, but maybe you grew up in a household where there was an alcoholic, and so you feel overly responsible for everybody else's behavior. You feel like you have to be the responsible one, or you feel like your behavior affects everybody, right? Or you're responsible for their happiness. You're responsible for everybody else's emotions, and it's up to you to manage everybody else's emotions. And he said that people struggle with their weight that have these behavior tendencies, and he called it codependency. And when I looked that up, I had seen a lot of similar behavior of this feeling like overly anxious or overly concerned about everybody else's behavior, thinking, okay, I need to make sure so-and-so is happy, so I got to act a certain way. Or I got to say this or do this over here so so-and-so doesn't get mad about this. And, like you feel overly responsible. But really what you're forgetting is like everybody is really responsible for their own emotions. You can only manage your own emotions. You really can't. You can try, or you may think you're in charge of other people's behavior and emotions, but you really are not. And it is exhausting trying to manage everybody else's emotions because you really are not powerful there. And you probably will feel defeated, and you probably will feel powerless to change other people's behavior because you have no power there. And so when you feel powerless, you tend to eat. So this was like a huge light bulb. It's like, okay, I am only responsible, and I can only control my own thoughts and my own actions and my own behaviors. I cannot control other people. So what can I do regardless of what is happening? What can I do? Okay, I can choose how I can react. I can choose the action I take, but I can't continue people pleasing because that's exhausting. And I can't continue manipulating people to behave the way I want them to. I can't control everybody else's behavior. So I have to detach, and I have to just be the best me I can be, and move forward, kind of play my position, do what I know how to do, and move forward for that and detach from everybody else's behavior. And it was such a freeing mentality shift. It was like, oh, wow, what a great way to live less anxious. I'm not responsible. Like a lot of times, especially with COVID, we watch the news and we worry about all these different things that are going to happen. And now we got the variants and all this nonsense. And it's like, I can't control any of that, but I can control what I can control. I can control my response to it. I'm going to, do the best I can in the circumstances I can, and I'm going to move on with life. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time ruminating and worrying and being concerned about other people and what they're doing, and because I can't control that. I can't. So I'm going to just play my position and do what I can do. And it is really a much better way to live. Like, serve and love the people you can, but don't try to manipulate and control their behavior because you can't. And it's exhausting to try. And when you become emotionally exhausted, you tend to overeat. So what you want to do is, so as you go through your week, okay, here's your takeaway. As you go through your week, try to start identifying these self-defeating thoughts that you're having, or these thought errors. Notice as they come up, like, hey, I just realized, I crammed that whole burger in, but I was telling myself like, oh, you finally let yourself have it. You better finish it, right? See if that comes up for you, or see if like there's a time of day every day where you're like, I'm hungry, and like notice, like, is there a pattern? What are the thoughts? Because action is always followed by a thought, right? So if your action is to overeat, or to eat off of like not eat according to like a health goal that you had set for yourself, and you're like, oh, I don't know why I did that. Kind of think back and think, okay, what was I thinking at that time? What was I telling myself? Start to pay attention and notice. And I know I've said this before, but doing this helps raise your emotional intelligence, and it helps you become more self-aware. Now, they find that people who have higher self-awareness and higher emotional intelligence tend to weigh less than people who do not have, who score very low on emotional intelligence and they score very low on self-awareness, tend to struggle with their weight more. Okay, so these tools will help you raise your emotional intelligence. They will help you become more self-aware. All the tools I teach do this. I thought this was good for you to kind of go about your week. And then once you do identify these thought errors that you're having, see what you can replace them with. What is a believable thought that you can replace with some of the thought errors that you're having. So it's like, I gave you some examples of like, I can't have that hot fudge sundae. I would be such a loser, right? Like instead of saying, I choose not to, because I know I'm not going to feel really good. And, so that saying I choose not to comes from such a place of power, because now I'm in the driver's seat, right? I'm not living in under these rules. I'm just saying, you know what? I know I won't feel well. I choose not to do it. And then moving on from there. So the book that I got the Identifying the Thinking Errors and the Food Triggers, that is called Brain Powered Weight Loss by Eliza Kingsford. She is the executive director of the Wellspring Weight Loss Program. That was very helpful. The other book was Codependent No More. And that was from Melody Beattie. It's Beattie. That is very helpful. So if you are an adult child of an alcoholic, or you find that you feel very responsible for everybody else's behavior. Now, of course, as a mom, you are somewhat responsible for your small children's behavior. But if you find like you have adult children and they're not acting the way you want, and you're really stressed about it, and they're not making the choices you think they should be making, this book might be actually really helpful for you. Codependent No More is the name of that one. And then the other book is Shrink Yourself. And that one is by Dr. Roger Gould. I like him a lot too. So anyway, all these books are really helpful. I think like right now, I'm looking at my desk and there's like 30 books or more. I just like to read them, and then I try to pull out the best to give you, so that you have as much information and as many tools as you can to help you move along with your health and wellness goals. In the meantime, here's my next shameless plug, but I would really love for you to join me inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint. If you're on the fence, I made it super, super simple. It's $1. Try it out for 7 days. I call it the Netflix of weight loss. There's so much in there. I think you'll be pleased. I know if you go through at least the main course, which is what you have access to for the $1, and actually apply the information, I know you'll lose weight. But also, I know you'll start to shift and change your relationship with food. And then if you want to stay and you find it helpful, we meet weekly on Mondays at 10 a.m. We go live. I answer questions. Whatever you want to talk about. I usually teach a little class similar to like what I teach on the podcast, but we dive deep, and you have the option of asking questions as we go along. So it's like having your own health and wellness coach for a fraction of the cost. And I offer $100 off when you go in as the $1, and then you want to try it out. So I think it's awesome. I'm a little bit biased, but actually the feedback has been really positive, which I'm very thankful for the people coming through. They're like, this is amazing. So that's exciting. That's the whole reason why I started Health, Wellness, and Chocolate, was to help women stop with the diets and actually just get to the root of why they struggle with their weight in the first place, and then just start building a life they love once they figure that out. So that's what we do inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint, and I would love to have you join me. Anyhow, have a good week, and pay attention. See what self-defeating thoughts you have, and see if you can replace them with a positive counter thought. Have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.